Morning. So usually I have a hard time getting out of bed, but today I was thinking about how I didn't get to do any video shooting or video editing yesterday. This morning I was like, you know what? I can take my laptop and I can edit video on the train. Like I sat up like this. I had to just come on camera and film that real quick because I found something that I want to do. I want to be able to have a secondary source of income. It's going to be a challenge. It would be a challenge regardless. So yesterday I was listening to someone. He said, I'm so mad. And I was like, what? We were all curious. He's like, I'm so mad at myself. He's like, I had a dream that I won the lottery, he said. And he's like, I looked at the lottery and it was a number that was very similar to the number that I usually play. He said, so I went to buy the thing, but I didn't submit it. And the person who does numbers with me is like, no, you should submit it. You might regret it. And he's like, no, I'm not going to do it. The number that he said was the number that ended up being the right number. Can you imagine? So sometimes the universe tells you to do something, right? And right now for me, it's the New York City Housing Subsidies Project. And it's also the YouTube channel or the video content. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to edit the video that I shot today, and then I'm going to shoot some more. Yeah, will you help me? Do what we do. Now I'm going to put this guy. I'm going to rinse you out a little. Hell yeah. That's what I feel. No sponsor. The most nutritionally complete meal on the planet. Let's get it. Every time I take it, I feel a lift. My body is anticipating that I'm going to feel better within half an hour. It's like, you're putting the good stuff in us. Thank you. So right now, Time Is Up by Poppy is playing. And I'm thinking to myself, you know what? All of the problems that I have, they're sourced. Like someone decided not to invest enough resources into the DHS, which resulted in my voucher being delayed. Somebody thought it was a good idea to make rent so expensive in New York. Somebody thought it was a good idea to not make affordable housing in New York, but to focus on prioritizing luxury apartments. So there are a lot of things that I'm going through, that we're going through as a society, that this community of the shelter is going through. And it's all because of indirect oppression, indirect discrimination, indirect discrimination. It's not direct, like, hey, no, you can't have an apartment, but it's indirect, 3, 4, 5 degrees of separation away from somebody who's making a decision that's saying, you, basically, essentially, you know what I'm saying? So their time is up. It's inevitable. But today I'm listening to my playlist on shuffle, and I like to see what the universe has to say to me. And 2024 listening party is what I was listening to. And there's this one piece. We Can Make the World Stop by Glitch Mob that played prior. And We Can Make the World Stop. Essentially, to me, is it's time to get up and start doing the things that make you the 6 degrees of separation. Because of you, people are 6 degrees of separation from justice. There's 60 degrees of separation from liberation, from peace, from freedom. There are 6 degrees of separation from a high quality of life, from not living paycheck to paycheck, etc. It's time. You feel me? It's time to go. Let's get it. Anybody inspired as much as I am this morning? These are the kind of things that you can't make up. Angel numbers on my elements. Isn't that funny? How do I look? Did I clean up nicely? Let's get my whole fit. Bum. 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 This. Thumb gloves. Backpack. Oh, it's too warm for these gloves. It's 50 degrees today. I'll save them for the evening. If it gets too warm as well, I can just take this off and leave this on. Or take this off and leave this on. Pretty cool, right? Versatile. Just tidy up my bed a little bit. Excess clothes that I wear often. So, keeping certain people off my back. Making it look presentable even though it is still messy. Now we're ready. All right, so let me share my story, my current story, the current episode that we're up to in this season, right? So I was having a mental health crisis back to back, nonstop, for I think 7-8 years, right? And in the interim, it was mental health crisis, all right, relax, all right, entrepreneurship. Mental health crisis, relax, parenting. Mental health crisis, when you hear mental health crisis, don't think of it as just one event. Think of it as a series of difficulties that eventually become too much for a person, and that person starts to decompensate. Decompensate is when your mental fortitude, your condition, you start to just deteriorate, right? So mental health crisis, I'm not going to call it a crisis. I'm going to call it mental health challenges. Challenges that are exacerbated by external factors, but also internal factors, right? External, your environment, your financial situation, your friends and family, relationships, conflicts, your job, etc. Internal factors, your mind, your behaviors, your trauma, etc. So I was going through it for a very long time, and it culminated in me needing to leave my parents' house because that house was a stressor. Being depressed for such a long time, being alone for such a long time, you know, just tending to myself, loving myself as much as I could, as many days as I could, it just eventually you have a strain. You're like, I need to go. I didn't have any window. I didn't have any means. Oh, that looks better. I didn't have any means of having my own place besides going through the shelter system, which I started in 2020, but I never finished. And in order to go to the shelter system, you have to not have a place to live. And my family was like, you can always stay here. I was like, great. Awesome. I tried going to the shelter in 2023, but I couldn't do it either. With my son, but I couldn't do it. Different factors. So now I'm finally in the shelter system again as of November 2024. I got my potential eligibility for CityFHEPS, which is the voucher that most people use for housing subsidies in New York. I got that on a Wednesday. I got into the Samaritan shelter on a Monday. And, I started looking for apartments, and I wasn't getting any hitbacks. And I was told that people discriminate against the CityFHEPS voucher. I was like, oh, wow, that's good to know, But also, my energy, I wasn't able to continue the momentum of applying to a whole bunch of apartments myself. So one day I'm sitting in the cafeteria in the shelter, and I noticed an ad for Anthos Home. Anthos Home is an organization that pairs people with disabilities and people who are families, disabilities, and youth to apartments, using the vouchers, people who are in shelter. They've recently expanded their offering to people in general, but now they have a high wait list because when you expand it to people in general, you know that you've got a lot of people who want to get housed. But at the time, it was for people with disabilities, and so I applied through my housing specialist, and they found me 3 apartments to check out. One of them was in Harlem, another one was in Times Square, like right Hell's Kitchen, and the last one was in Coney Island, and that apartment was beautiful. So I was like, yeah, I want that one, and I was excited. I was like, yo, this is an answer to prayer. This is great, February. But then there was a problem with my my voucher. In order to get it, I had to be rebudgeted. This is the nightmare term, rebudgeted. So HRA rebudgets people when your income goes up or down by $100. Right? You're making income, and then your income grows by $100. You have to be rebudgeted. It shrinks by $100. You have to be rebudgeted. Hell, right? Hell. And it turns out that HRA and the Department of Homeless Services, or DHS, HRA is the Human Resources Administration, more general. DHS, more concerted, more specific, niche. The Department of Homeless Services, DHS, has their own rebudgeting system, and it can take months because they have a backlog. So, trying to get rebudgeted didn't go well with HRA. It took months, and then they were like, okay, we're going to rebudget you ourselves. And, in order for you to get the CityFHEPS voucher, you should be working at least 10 hours a week. But being in the shelter, I was so stressed out by the environment, and I wasn't able to sleep well, that I couldn't work well. So I was only working once a week, and I didn't get the voucher because of that. Boom, 4 months down the drain, stress. And then I was like, now what? They're like, you should try to get supportive housing, scatter site. Supportive housing is for people with disabilities and for people who are street homeless or just like sheltered, people who have a hard time getting their own, but they might not have income, right? They may or may not have income. So are you applicable? Are you eligible for supportive housing? And then after 2 months, the answer was yes. So I'm like, okay, cool. Let me get supportive housing. Then I was getting anxious. I'm like, uh-oh, how long is it going to take? I want my son to live with me again. I want to move out of the shelter. A week after my supportive housing application went through, the housing lottery that I applied to in January responded and was like, okay, you're off the waiting list. Now it's time for you to have your apartment. Submit your documents. So in July, I submitted my documents, but I didn't have the CityFHEPS voucher because I needed to be rebudgeted again. So I give them the documents that I do have, and we wait for about 2 months and longer to be able to get the CityFHEPS voucher. After 3 months of waiting, the housing lottery that I got, which is a beautiful apartment in downtown Brooklyn, right close to the Barclays Center, they're like, yeah, if you don't get us the housing voucher by October 20th, then we're going to cancel your apartment. October 20th comes and goes. I still don't have my voucher. They were supposed to use pay stubs from August when I initially submitted my documents to DHS, but DHS is like, oh, it took us 2 months to do this. Now we need latest pay stubs. And because I'm a substitute teacher, I wasn't working over the summer, so I didn't have any pay stubs. So I had to wait until October 30th to get pay stubs, because there weren't any gigs in the beginning of September, so I had to wait for a while to get pay stubs. So now my apartment is in appeals. It's in an appeals process where if they rejected it already, but if we win the appeal, we can get it back. And I'm still waiting for them to submit to generate my CityFHEPS voucher. I submitted the pay stub October 30th, and now it's November 12th, and I still don't have a voucher. So it's a very much so touch and go situation. It's very iffy. It's very messy, Unfortunately, it's a drain on my emotions. It's a drain on my son, who has been waiting since like April. He's like, when are you getting an apartment? I'm like, soon. Like April, July. Oh, now it's August. Oh, now we should be September. Oh, now it should be October. Now I can't say it's November. Now it's not November. Like I want to move out December 1st. That's my desire. In order to do that, I need the CityFHEPS voucher first, and then I'm going to go to the management company for the housing, and I'm going to she was talking about a delay, and then before she even finished talking about the delay, the train moved. That was nice. Calm down. Exactly. I need to calm down. A little hungry, but that's why I'm going to lunch with my sister now. So the voucher problem is ongoing, and if I could get the voucher by the 20th, then I can go to the management company and appeal to them and say, hey, you have this voucher, you get paid 1 month retroactive, better than starting new and trying to find a new person to get this apartment. Just go with me. My son has been waiting. He'll have to spend Christmas without a home. He visited this apartment in August. We all want it. There's no delay. There was no dallying on my end. There was no delays on my end. We did everything we were supposed to do. This happens with the city, and it's something that definitely needs to change. Can you let us have this apartment? Now, one of the things that is impressed upon my heart is that I'm not supposed to um, bow down before man. You know, I can make that appeal to them without bowing down to them. I can believe that, and this is monotheism again. I believe that Yahweh can open doors for me to hold on. I believe that Yahweh can open doors for me to be able to get this apartment, you know? So it's one thing to say, hey, I need help, I need help, I need help to man. It's another thing to say, I need help, I need help, I need help to Yahweh, creator of the heavens and the earth. But that's enough of my monotheism because I'm going to leave that to the side right now. And basically, what I'm hoping is that I get my CityFHEPS voucher generated by the 20th. Councilwoman Alexis Aviles, right? Her office has been trying to help me with my housing voucher. They contacted the Department of Social Services, which is an umbrella for, I think, HRA and the DHS. See the Brooklyn Bridge in the background? 1111, make a wish. I want to live in Brooklyn. I want to live in Brooklyn. I also remember this one day I was on the bridge and I was talking to the love of my life, or the ex-love of my life, the TBD love of my life. And I was telling her how much I loved her right before I was going to get married to the not love of my life. There are a lot of things that I want. All right, back to this story. Oh yeah, now you can see the rest of the city. Let's keep that in the background. So, long story short, I want to get housed, right? The city has faulty processes that made it take over 2 months for me to get rebudgeted once I had signed my lease already. So from August to October, we were just waiting for DHS to print out my voucher, to give me my voucher. And I lost the apartment as a result. So we filed an appeal with the housing lottery website, Housing Connect, and from Councilwoman Alexis Aviles' office is also helping me by corresponding with the Department of Social Services to try to get my voucher on time to move in, preferably by December 1st, so that I could have a holiday with my son for Christmas and New Year's, and that I can have him over during the weekends when he's not with his mom doing school. So that's my story. That's my situation in a nutshell. And I have to rely on faith because my anxiety is very high, and so spirituality helps me overcome my anxiety. If I believe that there's a higher power that's coordinating things for my behalf, then I can relax a bit. If I genuinely believe it. It took me like 8 months of being in the shelter to start believing that. 8 months of wrestling with the creator of the universe. Being like, yo, I don't trust you for shit. Until finally it's like, okay, fine, I trust you. And now I'm being put into situations where I have to trust him. So that's my story.
Where they basically just evaluate your gender
I never knew this was a franchise. I just assumed it was a regular Chinese food store, but it's pretty healthy, pretty cool, pretty fun.
All right, video is currently happening.
ellipse warning. I can see how this film in general could intimidate people. You know, I can see how it would cause fear and alarm. I remember when I was young, you know, my family, when it came to content on the internet, they would be, they would also be, you know, like, oh my god, no, not this, not that, you know? But that's not what came to mind when I was watching it by myself. I was just enjoying it. But what made me make that connection is look at this with the images of civil rights leaders in the back. It can be intimidating to see somebody, you know, championing people from their race. You know, it can be intimidating for people to see queer sexuality. So there are certain things that you're conditioned for, you know, conditioned to enjoy. And then there are certain things that you have to learn how to approach. You know, it takes time for you to be able to be open to something like that. From a monotheistic perspective, I see us as Gentiles. And the only thing that Gentiles have to do is love God, love people, and love themselves. Everything else is fine. Nothing else is against the law, basically. Alright, I think I'm gonna end here because that looks a little suspect. Alright, from this point on, I'm just gonna enjoy the museum, but this one is very striking. This one stands out. Woolen thread on tapestry canvas. It really pops. It's amazing. I love the colors. This is like my kind of art. My aesthetic, if you will. Especially since like what I like is so oriented around people. You know, a brilliantly drawn person with brilliant accessories and outfits. It's really nice, I think. Alright, move on. I want you to come to the museum, so I'm not trying to show all of it, but this one right here, the end of a new world, the end of history, I like it a lot. Everybody likes it for their own reasons, but when you're spiritual, you can kind of like make your own connections, like that big purple pentagon in the center. To me, it kind of illustrates a map of where good is starting to occur, and it's going to spread out. The end of history as we know it. You know, people in religion believe that a lot of people in religion, not all, believe that the world is going to come to an end, Revelation times, and that, you know, Yahweh is going to destroy the world, kill a third of its population, just to be able to bring about a new heaven and a new earth. And that's a lot. You know, it doesn't have to be that way naturally. It's like Nineveh. You know, if you believe that this world is worth saving and redeeming, you can just ask for that. And the universe will orient its way to you, to you, I'm sorry. Creator, if you have his heart, I'm speaking in a different language now. Creator, if you have his heart, will orient his heart around what you desire. And if you desire the best outcome for everyone, if you love God with all your heart, your mind, soul, and then you love people as much as you love yourself, then you're doing all the things. You have God's heart, and why wouldn't he go ahead and create an egalitarian future for you and the world? You know what I'm saying? So yeah, the end of history. We're at the end of history as we know it. Check out the museum, dude. It's the Leslie-Lohman Museum.
That's why I like California. That's like for a lot of
This is the horny margarita. So Stonewall is pretty cool. My sister wanted to come here. I'm an ally, so like hell yeah. What comes to mind when I asked Yahweh, what's up? What's going on with you? How's everything? I was like, how do you feel about this? How I feel about this? And the word that came to mind was flags. Flags represent nations or groups, right? And Yahweh loves every nation and every group. So Yahweh wants every nation and every group, every flag to succeed, including this one. And so they've gone through their moments, they've had their challenges, and now they have their flag and they have a group, and everybody in that group has the idea that they want freedom and equality for their group. So, you know, Yahweh wants everyone to succeed. I've never really, well, that's not true. There have been times that I wasn't sure about that. But in my 20s, I was like, yeah, God loves gay people. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, no, for my first time at Stonewall, I'm enjoying it. I misplaced my date at Target. Technically, I could just call her. I just thought it was funny. She's like, look, finding somebody. And she disappears trying to find somebody. I find somebody. And I'm like, well, where'd she go? And now she's just gone. I found her. All right, so today was relatively successful. It was interesting. I'm not gonna gossip too much because, you know, it's a personal situation and experience. But Aquarius and Virgo, we just spent time butting heads a little bit, and I think it was awesome. Because the observation that I made to her was that not most people, but people usually in relationships try to gravitate towards each other. We're pulling away from each other, like trying to protect our peace. Oh, I don't like that. I want to protect my peace. I don't like that. I want to protect my peace, you know? Hold on, let me flip the camera. So yeah, we were protecting our peace. So what did I learn today? Well, I was gonna work on editing the vlog, but like my peace was a little bit, not threatened, but it was thrown off a little bit. And so I had to kind of like take some time to reflect on the relationship itself. Today was a beautiful day. Went to Stonewall with my sister, wasn't expecting that. Went to that queer art museum. It was great, you know? Right now I'm coming back to the shelter. I'm about to get lit with the guys, about to play music, smoke. It's gonna be great too. I think it's interesting to see dating as the inverse of what it's been so far, right? Dating in the past is like, I'm excited about this. I might be excited about the fact that this guy has money. I might be excited about the fact that this woman has C cups. You know, and so people get excited and then they try to make things work, you know, based on what they're excited about. They'll try to make things work. And when things aren't working, they'll become disappointed and they'll try to make things not work. What we just did was we were finding that we didn't like certain things, right? We were incompatible in certain ways, or we had different desires. I could have just sat there and said, damn, that's it. You know, she's not feeling me. But I just continued to be myself. And I didn't sit there and kowtow. I didn't sit there and say, no, you're right. No, that wouldn't have been true. It would have been a lie. So I was actually argumentative a little bit, like, no, this is the truth. I wasn't trying to argue for the sake of argument. I was trying to argue for the sake of saying, this is what really happened. I want you to know the truth. I want you to understand the truth so you don't think I'm just crazy, you know? And so that's what our date was comprised of. It was comprised of me basically defending different points and saying, no, you need to know about this. And one of the main things I was talking about was I gave the analogy of a soccer player. And I said, you know, soccer players, they have to spend about 7 hours a day working on their craft in order to be elite enough to compete on an elite level. You know, they don't work a day job and then become soccer players at night. And I said, that's why I don't work as much. I'm trying to save my energy, trying to save my strength, trying to save my focus for entrepreneurship. I don't want to be a teacher. I want to be an entrepreneur. You spend the hours on the thing that you want to do the most. It's a mindset shift that not everybody has. But that's my mindset. My mindset is that I want to be successful as an entrepreneur. And that's something that I'm spending the next 3 weeks focusing on, that proposal.
If I were to say, oh, now I want to have money so I can go on dates, I wouldn't be focusing on that proposal and it would never get done. The amount of time that it deserves is the amount of time I'm giving to it. This is one of the reasons I don't date, is because women can come and expect to have fun experiences, and I'm like, I'm just trying to chill. I'm not trying to spend money. So this is the chasm, the chasm between us. I think that's the right word, chasm. But with this person, I'm just taking it one day at a time. Maybe we won't date the way that most people date. Maybe we will date inverted. Maybe it will be, oh, you know what? I could f around with you. I could see what happens a month or 2 or 3 from now. I could hang out with you just to be around somebody, and then I'll see how things end up. You say that you're working on this entrepreneurial endeavor. I'll f with you for a bit. I'll mess with you for a bit. I'll try you out for a bit. That's what I'm hoping happens. But if it doesn't happen, then it's an oh well situation. Every single person who doesn't date you before you achieve success is simply an oh well situation, right? Oh well. What can you say but oh well? All right, let me get into this. Let me get in here.